The modern world is everything but a safe place. This sad but indisputable fact has also been proven by several other lists we've already published. There are many various statistics evaluating the safety in different parts of the world published every year, and possibly the most alarming and disturbing one is the International Homicide Rate Statistics made by the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime.
The rates are based on the number of homicides per 100,000 inhabitants annually. If you want to know which 25 countries had the highest murder rates in recent years, listen closely.
25. Panama. Located on the isthmus connecting North and South America, Panama is just one of the many Central American countries listed in this video. Generally, the number of murders committed has been slowly decreasing, but the very high criminality that often involves gun violence is one of the reasons why Panama unfortunately still belongs on this list.
24. Botswana. A landlocked country in southern Africa, Botswana has the opposite tendency to Panama. In this country, more and more people are killed every year. While in 2009 the murder rate was about 14 out of 100,000, in 2012 that number jumped up to 18.4. Apart from the frequent homicides, the local population is also being decimated by the AIDS epidemic.
23. Equatorial Guinea. With a population of just over 600,000 people, Equatorial Guinea is another African country that regularly finds its place in this lamentable statistic. Alarmingly high occurrence of armed drug gangs and robbers, combined with poor police activity, are some of the major reasons why murders as well as other crimes are so common.
22. Nigeria. With approximately 174 million inhabitants, Nigeria, the most populous country in Africa, is notorious for extremely high rates of all sorts of violent crimes. Therefore, it comes as no surprise that it appears on our list. Every year, about 20 out of 100,000 Nigerian people are victims of a murder. Moreover, hideous practices of raping, domestic violence, or even slavery remain common in this country.
21. Dominica. Inhabited by just about 70,000 permanent residents, Dominica is one of the smallest countries in the world, but when it comes to the homicide rate, this popular Caribbean holiday destination can compete with much larger countries. Even tourists can get robbed or encounter aggressive behavior.
20. Mexico. With a total area of almost 2 million square kilometers, Mexico, the fifth largest country in the Americas by area, is notorious for its enormous problems with drug trafficking and related criminality that very often involves homicides. These, sometimes very brutal, murders are often used to intimidate rival gangs.
19. St. Lucia. With a population of about 175,000 people, St. Lucia is another little Caribbean country that is, apart from amazing natural beauties and marvelous beaches, known for a very high homicide rate. And, sadly enough, that number continues to grow. Though in 2007 there were only 27 murders reported in the country, just 4 years later, that number was nearly doubled.
18. Dominican Republic. The second largest Caribbean country, the Dominican Republic is home to almost 10 million people that often have to fear for their safety. The murders in this country are frequently associated with the drug trade, since the Dominican Republic serves as a transit station for Colombian drugs destined to Europe and the US. The country has also been criticized for its mild approach to convicted criminals.
17. Rwanda. Located in Central and East Africa, Rwanda has experienced one of the most hideous and atrocious genocides in human history, and unfortunately, killing people still seems to be a sorrowfully common thing in this country. But a high number of homicides is not the only problem Rwanda has been struggling with. Other types of violent crimes such as rape and robbery are also very common.
16. Brazil. With a population of over 200 million, Brazil is one of the largest and most populous countries on our list. But the huge number of inhabitants brings about a dramatic amount of murders. In 2012, almost 65,000 people were killed.
15. St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Occupying a total area of approximately 390 square kilometers, St. Vincent and the Grenadines is another small Caribbean country with an extremely high homicide rate. Interpol statistics suggest that, apart from the murders, rapes, robberies, aggravated assaults, and burglaries are also quite common.
14. The Democratic Republic of the Congo. Located in Central Africa, the Democratic Republic of the Congo is a country extremely rich in natural resources, but political instability, devastating civil wars, a lack of infrastructure, and pervasive corruption have created a breeding ground for enormous criminality with a particularly high homicide rate.
13. Trinidad and Tobago. Although Trinidad and Tobago is the third richest country per capita in the Americas, after the US and Canada, this Caribbean country has been listed among those with the highest homicide rate in the world. In recent years, on average, more than 28 out of 100,000 people have been murdered annually.
12. The Bahamas. A former British Crown colony, the Bahamas is an island country consisting of more than 700 islands in the Atlantic. Despite being a relatively rich country, the Bahamas has been unsuccessful in dealing with the same problem as their Caribbean neighbors. In 2013, for example, 120 people were killed, which contributed to the average homicide rate of almost 30 per 100,000.
11. Colombia. Situated in the northwest of South America, Colombia is notorious for its drug production and trade. This, combined with the highly segregated society, split between the rich families of Spanish descent and the majority of poor Colombians, has led to many locals getting involved not only in murders, but also kidnappings, robberies, aggravated assaults, and other crimes.
10. South Africa. Despite its nicely sounding nickname, the Rainbow Nation, South Africa, home to about 54 million people, has a very high rate of murders, assaults, rapes, and other violent crimes. Statistics published by local police suggest that around 50 people are murdered every day, which is a really alarming number.
9. St. Kitts and Nevis. Located in the West Indies, St. Kitts and Nevis is the smallest sovereign state in the Americas in both area and population. But even among those 50,000 people who live in this tiny country, there is a significant number of those who obviously don't mind killing others.
8. Swaziland. Mostly surrounded by South Africa, Swaziland, with a population of just over 1 million, is one of the smallest countries in Africa. But the numbers related to the homicide occurrence are far from being small, decimated by not only enormous criminality, but also extreme poverty and diseases such as AIDS and tuberculosis. The estimated average life expectancy is just 50 years.
7. Lesotho. Lesotho is another little African country situated within South Africa. Apart from location and size, it shares one more thing with Swaziland: an uncontrollable homicide rate. Almost half of the country's population lives below the poverty line, which is partly responsible for its enormous criminality and annual murder rate.
6. Jamaica. Occupying an area of 11,000 square kilometers, Jamaica is another representative of the Caribbean. For many years, the country has been notorious for having one of the world's highest homicide rates. These murders and violent crimes are particularly frequent in large cities such as Kingston.
5. Guatemala. With a population of almost 16 million, Guatemala is the most populous country in Central America. With an average of about 100 murders committed every month, Guatemala has ranked as the country with the 5th highest homicide rate in the world. In the 1990s, for example, the city of Escuintla had an annual rate of 165 murders per 100,000 people.
4. El Salvador. Deeply affected by the long-term and devastating civil war, El Salvador is home to about 6.3 million people. The extremely high homicide rate in this country is marked by a significant occurrence of gang-related crimes and juvenile delinquency.
3. Belize. With an area of 22,800 square kilometers and a population of about 340,000 people, Belize is the least densely populated country in Central America. But, despite its amazing natural beauties and wildlife, this country is far from being a good place to live. An enormous homicide rate of almost 45 murders per 100,000 people makes Belize one of the most dangerous countries in the world. The homicides are particularly frequent in the Belize City district, where in 2007, half of all that year's murders occurred.
2. Venezuela. Located on the northern coast of South America, Venezuela has been known as one of the world's major oil exporters, but also as a country with a pervasive and unusually high occurrence of homicides. Every year, more than 50 people out of 100,000 are killed in Venezuela, and this number has been consistently growing over the last few decades.
1. Honduras. According to the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, Honduras, home to about 8.25 million people, has by far the highest homicide rate of all countries in the world. Its unparalleled average rate of 90.4 murders per 100,000 people means that in this country, almost every 1,000th person is killed. Since Honduras is a popular holiday destination, tourists are often targeted as victims of various violent crimes.
Liking our lists? Be sure to subscribe by pressing the button at the top corner of your screen. And if you're still itching for more awesome lists, click on these nifty thumbnails created by yours truly, and be sure to show us some love by liking, sharing, and commenting.